Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Good morning, good morning. My name is Andrea Simantov, and you are listening to Pull Up a Chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I am saying good morning. I have some humorous information to share with you today because the skies are getting overcast and I'm planning on going camping this weekend. Do you believe it? All right. So let's say wow, it's late at night in the United States is listening in. And I don't know, however we want to push the envelope here in France and in Ireland. It's like the middle of the night, late at night, early morning. So good morning, good evening. Hello, good day, Australia. Boker Tov, Eretz Israel. And let's say good morning to both Russia and is listening in. Norway is listening in. Wow, here's an honorable surprise. Good morning, Egypt. Nice to have you listening in. And of course, our friends in Nigeria. Great show ahead of us today. My good friend and travel guru, Mark Feldman, from Zion Tours is going to be speaking with us today. And I have to tell you, a lot of us have questions about what the heck is going on with air travel. Will we be allowed out? How penned into the planes? How many people will be allowed into Israel? How many will be allowed out of Israel? What requirements are being asked of us, both coming in and out? He's the guy to know. How much do we have to stay on top of it? I have a whole slew of questions, and that is it. And let me see. Oh, if you're in the chat room, which I like very, very much, I like you to be in the chat room. Chat room rule. The regulars know it. You are nice. If you're a creep, stay out of the chat room. We had a creep last week. He didn't understand the rules. Okay, as we say from a cool hand Luke, we had a failure to communicate. So this is the nice show. This is the good show. This is the open-minded show. And this is the show with less information and more heart. Okay. So as I said, when I come back, we're going to talk to my travel friend. We're going to talk about Parsha this week. Very important. And I'll decide whether or not we're going to mention that jerk, Roger Waters. I haven't needed a cup of coffee to think of that one. Okay, my name is Andrea Simantov. Guess what? I'll see you on the other side.
Israel is located in one of the most volatile areas in the world. Israel is an island of stability in a sea of war and unrest. In the midst of this turmoil, Israel stands out as a beacon of order and human progress. Each week we update you on what's happening in this, the Jewish state, a true light unto the nations. This is Jay Shapiro. Join me every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simantov, Pull Up a Chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Okay, so I'm very excited about my guest who's going to be coming up. He's going to pop in the middle of this segment, which is kind of exciting. And at first I was going to save him for segment 2, but then I thought, wow, we have a lot to talk about because travel, or lack thereof, is on everybody's mind today. So speaking about travel, I just want to keep you laughing. So I think I mentioned on the last show that the husband and I, in a moment of madness, in a moment of lockdown mania, purchased nearly sight unseen a used caravan. Now you can imagine this caravan. It's a little hippy-dippy caravan, fits into a parking space. It's tiny, and yet it has a kitchen and a bed and a table and a bathroom. You have to see, with a lot of pictures of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov all over the inside and outside of this caravan. Very much not who we are, but it just added to the allure. I guess that we were thinking of breaking out, getting out. Anyway, I'm going to be traveling, please God, to the States in a few weeks. We'll talk more about that with our guest. And we thought this is the Shabbos to go away, to try the caravan, because if it's not good, if there are things that need replacing, need fixing, we don't want to wait too close to Passover because, there'll be too much anxiety. So anyway, I started to make the list of what I need to bring into the caravan. There's no way that all this stuff is going to fit into the caravan because, of course, we have to go to a dog-friendly park. So the dog-friendly park means that we need the dog crate and we need the leashes and we need the food. We also need towels. We need blankets. What else do we have? I'm bringing pots. I'm bringing a couple of dishes, a few pans, a hot water pot, a little 2-burner stove. It's on and on and on. And I'm laughing because suddenly the forecast is for stormy weather. Well, we're doing it, boys and girls. So I'm not certain you're going to hear from me next week. I don't know. I may be washed down, maybe washed into the Kinneret and down through the River Jordan. But if I'm here next week, well, just stay tuned. So I will let you know how it goes. Not exactly the relaxing Sabbath that we are used to, but I am excited. Speaking about Sabbath, we are going to a very interesting point in this week's Torah portion, the Parsha. I never really understood with the building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, how it juxtaposes and relates to the Holy Sabbath. Well, I did some Torah diggings, some nice research, and we will share it together. Let's see, what else did I want? Oh, yeah. So today, this morning, is the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the date of the passing of my husband's mother. Certainly a somber memory, but filled with joy. But what I never knew her because I wasn't his third wife yet. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that he goes off to synagogue. Now, we know that there's a rumor. The rumor has it that Jews don't drink. Well, apparently my husband did not get the memo. At 6:45 in the morning, he headed off to synagogue with his prayer shawl, with his phylacteries, and a full bottle of whiskey to commemorate. All right, so let's see. We're waiting to hear from this was really funny thing I might share with you. This morning, I'm checking out the mic. How's the mic going? Having problems with the microphone. So I call the engineer, our stalwart engineer on this brilliant station. And he's sounding funny and his accent is off. And I'm thinking, my goodness, did they get a new engineer and not tell me? Usually, we have a little banter between. And I'm thinking, and the mic isn't working. And what am I hearing? All I'm hearing is I'm hearing the sound of this engineer through the background going, Andrea, we don't have an interview. I realized that I was calling South Africa. I was calling the station that I do another show in South Africa. I may have wakened them up from their South African slumber. Nice start to the day. All right, let's see. Oh, I was laughing. If I'm laughing, I'm expecting you to laugh. Ha ha, yuck, yuck. Came across an adorable essay from a young girl. Let's see, let's make this girl famous. Her name is Emma Knight, Knight. She's 8 years old. I don't know where she goes to school, but apparently she's been in school this year, unlike most of the kids in Israel. And it's the 100th day of school, and they had a contest called My Best Life. Sounds a little Oprah-ish. Anyway, Emma wrote an essay about what would happen, all right? What would happen when she turns 100 years old. And this is Emma's delicious essay. She's my kind of people. Quote, when I am 100 years old, I will be tired of everything and everyone. So I will tell everyone I'm going to Canada, but actually go to the Bahamas. I'll live in a tiny hut with my tiny dog. I will order fish tacos when I'm hungry and live my best life with no crap. Way to go, Emma. When you're in Israel, you're going to be a live guest on this show. All right, I just got an exciting heads up. My special guest, my new best friend, Indeed, the husband, maybe this is why my husband started to drink, because I have a new boyfriend, and his name is Mark Feldman. And Mark is the owner, I hope he doesn't correct me on this, the owner of the stalwart, the indomitable Zion Tours, which really is a fixture here in Israel. And we have a lot of questions for Mark. Mark, are you on the line?
I am indeed. Good morning. Glorious day today, right?
Well, it's getting a little overcast, and I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show. I'm going camping this weekend. 65 years old. I can barely move my ass, and I'm going to be out cooking. It's crazy. Did you have a morning workout?
I had a workout. Dealt with people stuck in New York and in Kathmandu. People that were. It's a very, very, very pressurized, tense situation. We just really don't know what's going on, and it changes, unfortunately, hour to hour.
Well, I really want to get that. I want to tell you something, Mark. At first, I said that I'm going to bring you on in the second segment, but then I realized we have a very, kavua, a very set third segment where I talk about the Torah portion of the week, and I thought we're not going to have enough time, so I brought you on now because that was actually my last question. Is how likely are all these rules to change in the coming days and weeks?
Oh, 100% they will change. Okay. I guarantee you that whatever I say now may not be in effect a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Understand, all the government decisions are made by politics, not by policy. And it's been going on literally almost 2 months straight that we've lived in this Alice in Wonderland, curious and curiouser world. We just
share. Explain to me why, Mark. What do you tell us more? What is that about?
Okay, so let's talk. If your listeners remember, a couple of months ago they decided to close down the airport. Forget vaccines, forget green passports, forget COVID-19 testing. Anybody who wants to leave or enter this country, Israeli passports only, of course, no tourists, must get permission from the government. We went back to 1984, Big Brother. It doesn't matter why or what. The ability to get on a plane was taken away from every single citizen. This went on for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Many airlines couldn't deal with the pressure. Actually, United and Delta kept flying every single day. El Al threw in the towel and stopped flying completely. Then, after 5 weeks of pressure, 13 days ago, the government said, okay, we will allow 1,000 people a day, 2,000 people a day, 3,000 right before the election day.
Yeah, right.
We'll choose that number. Okay. People were contacting travel agents and airlines. Am I one of the lucky to win a lottery ticket? No, this is not Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. What the government did is limit the amount of airlines that could come here. Need to get to Africa? Too bad, no Ethiopians. Need to get to the Far East? Too bad, no Cathay Pacific. Need to get to Europe? We'll let Lufthansa fly. That was it. It was interesting that what they allowed was New York, London, and Frankfurt for rescue flights. Why?
That's the question. What's your thinking behind that?
Look, I don't want to say that it was because these were the largest populations of ultra-Orthodox. I really don't. I want to believe that for whatever reason, the government made some intelligent choices. The reality, though, appears otherwise. Listeners who were lucky to fly in the last few weeks will tell you that most of the planes from the United States were overwhelmingly ultra-Orthodox Jews. We don't even know how it managed, but they were doing it. There was a lot of pressure put on. And what happened is, even though you and I and many of your listeners who were double vaccinated would not need permission to go, my kids haven't been vaccinated. They need permission. And Andrea, they're denied. To this hour, they are being denied. They're still with foreign passports. I'm talking about not just an Israeli who decided to take their kids to the Grand Canyon for Passover. These are people with foreign passports as well as Israeli passports. They were denied. Till today, they were denied.
So let's make this. Oh, wait a second. I'm looking. Mark, you know what? We're running out of time this segment. This is excellent. And I know that listeners are going to have questions. If you have questions, really pop them into the chat room, boys and girls, for Mark. And when we come back, I'm going to actually personalize this so we can get a sense of how this can affect. And wow, Mark, I want to know what your days and nights are like and what the brunt of passion you are facing. Can we talk on the other side?
With pleasure.
Okay, good. Go get a third cup of coffee, and we will speak when I come back. All right, everybody, let me know that you're in the chat room. Give me your location, and I want to know from Mark, which airlines exactly have had permission. See you on the other side.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Tamar? She's sassy.
She's smart.
She's funny.
But she's also a real Jewish mother.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tamar Yona. And yes, I can be all of those things. But at Israel News Talk Radio, I'm here to bring you the news stories and guests that you may not hear anywhere else. Join me live on air Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays for the most unique and bold talk radio in Israel.
The Tamar Yona Show.
Shalom, I'm Leah Aharoni. Join me on my show, News from the Torah. Each Sunday, we'll use the weekly Torah portion as a prism for understanding the news today. Listen to News from the Torah to gain clarity about the times we're living in and to understand your own spiritual path in the process. News from the Torah every Sunday on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simantov on Pull Up a Chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I've had a lot of fun during the break, too much fun. So I'm back and forth, and I'm bantering with my new best friend, Mark. I told you he's the real reason my husband started to drink. And wow, he's got a little baby in the background. So mazel tov, Mark Feldman. You're still on the line, you whippersnapper, you.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Does it keep you young?
It keeps me sane. It keeps me grounded. It allows me, look, I don't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours a night anyway, so this just gives me more quality time.
Yeah, I like that. Well, especially now. Do you sleep with your cell phone next to your head, or have you managed?
No. I actually really, really, very, very much, when I come home, I try to deal with family. I think it's really important to have that separation.
Very much so, because these days, Mark, you really are the guy in the crosshairs. So before the break, we were talking about what planes can come in, what planes can come out. Do your thing, Mark, because you have a lot to share, all right?
Look,
where do you want to take this?
We know right now El Al is flying some flights to the United States. They just canceled several hours ago a dozen flights for next week to Newark and to Los Angeles. No reason given.
Wait, stop. Say that again, Mark. How many flights were canceled for next week?
12 flights at El Al were canceled. All of their flights to Newark, their second flight to JFK, their flight to Los Angeles. Everyone was canceled. And again, the new owner of El Al, Mr. Rosenberg, just moved to Israel 4 days ago.
Right.
Again, one of the things that's disappointing to me the last few months is we haven't really seen American management step up into El Al. It was really my hope that there would be major changes in El Al. This is the chance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is still considered, for better or worse, our national carrier. And El Al today, you have to understand this, has no phones, has no emails, has no way for people to contact them. It's one of the hardest parts for me is when people contact me and say, please help me, my flight was canceled. And I say, I don't have access. It wasn't booked through my office. I apologize profusely, but I can't help you because there is no way to reach El Al but a WhatsApp, and she doesn't answer. Now, again.
Wow, Mark, this is a very, very disappointing. This show is a very upbeat show, and I feel that this is a critical interview, and people do need to have this information. Nevertheless, I'm awash in embarrassment and shame, and this is very disappointing stuff. Yeah.
Now, look, again, it can be turned around. We have a new owner. We have the Rosenbergs. They come from a successful business background. They know that customer service is the number one element. So I asked them, I impeached them to start taking charge. Don't let the present management run ramshot. Look, the foreign carriers are doing their best. Like I said, United and Delta never stopped flying here. They flew every single day. And it's why they picked up so much business. Look, American Airlines is starting to fly here on May 9th. The second largest U.S. carrier has decided daily flights to JFK. They believe in Israel. They believe that sooner or later we will see on the streets of Ben Yehuda tourists. They believe that you'll hear French in Netanya. There's a belief that come the spring, tourism will return here. So, yeah, we can be optimistic. We really can see the light is at the end of the tunnel. All we need are some people to take responsibility, to make decisions based on policy. We have every single person who gets on a plane, every single person must have a COVID-19 test. Every single person who comes to Israel must get a PCR test, and when he or she lands at Ben Gurion Airport, must get a COVID-19 test.
Okay.
So what are we afraid of? Why are we limiting the amount of people? Why are we stopping tourists to come here? Why are hotels and restaurants and tourism sites suffering so greatly? Nobody is answering this question. Nobody has been given a sane policy. How do we extricate ourselves from this situation? We want to protect our health. Let's be really clear. We've got the ability to do so now. Want to fly? Get tested. Want to land? Get tested. You don't want to? Then don't fly. That has to be the policy. That has to be the way to get people confident enough to fly. This concept where I'm vaccinated and I can get on a plane, but you, small child, cannot, is absurd. I don't really want to call it because nobody knows who sits on this exemption committee, now under the Transportation Ministry. We do know that the police opened up an investigation because it seems that lovely Israeli word protexia is how people were getting permission to depart or to enter the country.
I need to jump in here. I need to jump in here 1 second, Mark.
This has to be what we're looking for.
Okay, I mean, a perfect example. I know, for example, I have children in South Africa. I haven't seen them in almost 2 years now, a year and a half. I had other obligations, which you are helping me with to meet in the States, please God. And yet, somebody I knew recently was in South Africa visiting an ailing parent. It was just really a heartache. But I didn't understand because clients of mine who are South African cannot see their parents. And then I realized that this person is very government connected. And, I just shook because undoubtedly, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, was this person afforded some kind of protexia to get to Johannesburg?
The short answer is yes.
Okay. All right. I rest my case.
I want to keep it, like I said, I'm looking out my window and I see blue skies and a sunny, so I, by nature, am always an optimist. I want to believe that we'll do it. But the stories that all of us have heard, people not being able to get to their parents' funeral, people not being able to get to a sick brother who's ill, these stories are real. These will resonate. This is not going away tomorrow. Nobody has taken responsibility to say, stop this madness. I'm not going to take it anymore. I will open up the skies. Nobody. And by the way, again, you have to understand, this is not to do with right wing or left wing. I'm not hearing Ahmad Tibi or Yair Lapid climbing up and saying, let the skies. I'm not hearing Naftali Bennett saying we must open up. You have very, very few political leaders who are coming out saying this madness must stop.
Mark, I want to jump in here right now because, I'm married to the clock and we have 5 minutes left. But I just want to say something that in the weeks leading up to Pesach and the weeks all ahead, you really are. I was speaking lightly, but when I sit and say that you are the guru, Mark, like so many people, I had been booking tickets by myself online, thinking that I did not need assistance. And I have to tell you, you might be up all night, but I'm sleeping very well at night knowing that I have a travel agent. And I do want to talk about the critical importance of using a travel agent at this time, number one. And number two, I want to elicit from you a promise that in the weeks ahead, whenever you want, you wake up, you jot me a note and you tell me something that this audience must know, must become aware of. And so before we go on, can I get that promise from you?
You have that promise. And again, I'll follow up. This is the time. This is really the time, your listeners. I know all of us think that we can do everything on the internet. If anything is proven, go to your travel professional. Go to the person who was your agent 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Let him or her book the flight. If it costs you a few dollars more, it's worth it. You really need these days and in the coming months a travel professional. It really, really is important. You know, all 38 of my staff are still on halat. All 30 of my staff.
That's on temporary leave. It's a lot, right?
But all of them are still volunteering and helping their clients. All of them. That's what it is. You feel responsible. We are not going to let, Chaim Cohen be left out. We're not going to let Batya Dashevsky be ignored. They care too much. Utilize them. Use your travel professional. This is the time.
So I love it. And you're not going to get any argument from me. I will scream it. I'm a very big believer. I'm a very believer in commission-based help, whether it be realty, anything. I like people to earn their commissions, but deservedly and wonderfully. And I know that you are not sleeping at night, so I can. Mark, perfect example. Let's make it personal. I'm scheduled to fly to the States a week from next Thursday. But I've also wisely, I believe, made alternative plans here in Israel with the possibility that I may not get out. Was it wise of me to make alternative plans?
No, I promise you, and I'm giving you a personal promise, you will be out of this country.
But the question is, before we go, will I be able to get back? Is there any more a 60-day rule? Can I get back, Mark? Don't you want to see me?
Picky. I said I guarantee to get you out. Now you want me to tell you that you can come back? Too much, Andrew. Just too much.
Mark, I really am waiting for the answer to that.
We will get you back. We will get you back. One way or the other, we will get you back. One last thing on a serious note, because I know we have to run. Everything's happening is only in effect till March 20th, okay? What we don't know, and this has happened for the last, every time these sanctions were to expire, a few hours before the government decided. There's a lot of rumors going out that the airport will be closed on March 21st. I can tell you now, that's balderdash. It will not happen. We will not stop all airlines flying here 2 days before the election. We will not stop airlines flying here for Passover. Once March 23rd comes, we know that they're going to be building coalitions. Your listeners should know this doesn't happen overnight. This will be a lengthy process. Throughout that process, I promise every listener they will be able to fly out of Israel and they will be able to fly inside Israel.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, guaranteed. That is Mark Feldman from Zion Tours. His information will appear on the show notes. And Mark, we will be speaking with you again. Speak to the rest of
Much
you
love to everybody.
On the other side.
All of your listeners.
In a time where feelings have become fact, where rational thought and common sense has disappeared, one man stands above it all.
I'm Howie Sobiker, your political hitman.
Political Hitman airs every Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. North American time, 7 a.m. Israeli time, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on The Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
And we're back. Andrea Simintov, pull up a chair on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. What a wonderful, I like information. What a wonderful interview. And again, Mark will be reachable. I really do believe that these are the times. It's not bleak. Things can change in a moment. We live in the land of miracles. Okay. And all right, that's that. Parsha, this section of our week, very important. I have to tell you, I did a little bit of research this week because I'm going away and I feel that I'm going off. I myself am going off into the Midbar, into the deserts of northern Israel. Spent a little time, and this week's Parsha brings up a few points, and I'm very interested in your thoughts. So I came across the following question from a source, a Rav called Ahavat Yonatan. And Ahavat Yonatan was a Kabbalist, a Talmudist from Prague. He was born in the late 1800s, late 1600s, but his sphere of influence took place in the early 1700s. And he asks us this question: why didn't Moshe render the same accounting for the gold used in the making of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, as he did for the silver? You know, I'm reading this for years, and I never knew. I never even thought to ask. And he answers his own question. Because the gold was derived from voluntary donations, while the silver consisted of the half shekels, which every Israelite was commanded to pay. He's really saying something about giving from our own heart versus being obligated. Moshe felt that some of those who had made the compulsory contribution could become suspicious, demand an exact accounting, the checks and balances of what had been done with their money, but that generous individuals, people with what we say open hands, large givers who had made these voluntary donations of gold, wouldn't be so petty as to insist on the report. I like that a lot. I'd like to know your thoughts. By the way, any thoughts of the show? Anything that you want to ask me off, not during showtime, you think about later? Drop me a note at Andrea@IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. That's Andrea, Andrea, at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Remember, it's a journey and we're in it together. All right, so the Parsha begins with Moshe gathering the people of Israel, and he prefaces his instructions concerning the building of the Mishkan. I'm going to use the Hebrew words, okay? So take notes on the side. Mishkan is roughly translated to tabernacle, with the warning that they must not violate the sanctity of the Shabbat. So speaking of repetitions, were we indeed speaking of repetitions, Andrea? Like the constant instructions, how much were they talking about the details of the Mishkan's construction? Here we have another detail. So the Abarbanel asks why the Torah has to repeat what already has been imparted in the Ten Commandments, as well as the Torah portion of Mishpatim. Why are we saying it again and again in connection with the construction of the Mishkan? The Rambam explains. Something that is dear, something that is precious, is repeated. The Torah mentions the Mishkan over and over to show how blessed it was to those who participated in it, in both the construction and the decor and the thriving. The Torah implies that there was diligence involved. It was no slapdash. But as important as the involvement of the construction of the Mishkan is, don't be confused. It cannot override the sanctity of the Holy Sabbath. Those who participated in the construction, they were blessed, but not if the work was performed on the Sabbath. What an important fact to know when trying to convince someone the importance of the Sabbath day. One does not override the other. So it's a very comprehensive answer, but there's still something that's very fundamental. Why does resting or inactivity on the Sabbath overrule the positive activity of completing the Mishkan? I'm thinking about this. Maybe this is why I was thinking, because here I am going camping on the Sabbath, something that I have never done. And I have to face a whole new bunch of rules concerning this. I guess this is why it's kind of prevalent. So Rabbi A.J. Heschel, in his book, The Sabbath, Its Meaning for Modern Man, he explains one of the basics of Torah. Unlike other religions, the Torah doesn't concern itself with things or space. What's very important to the Torah is time. It's no wonder that the most divine word in the Torah is kadosh, used, holiness, I forgot to translate that, used for the first time after the creation with regard to what? The Sabbath. After Hashem creates the universe, he doesn't ask to set aside a mountain, set aside a sanctuary, set aside an altar. God made the seventh day holy by resting, not by working. In fact, the holy things hadn't been commanded. They do not appear until the people of Israel had succumbed to that temptation of the golden calf. I never thought about this before. We see from the Midrash that the concept of space doesn't bear any significance. Space, things, these are merely imposed to accommodate the needs of Israel. In fact, we actually see that the day after the Mishkan was completed, it was Moshe who sanctified it. Quote, and it came to the day when Moshe finished erecting the Mishkan, that he anointed it and sacrificed it. On the other hand, it was God himself that sanctified the Shabbat. Quote, and God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. The main lesson of this week's Torah reading, which might possibly be obscured by the wealth of this Mishkan detail, and that appears in the closing chapters of the book of Shemot, the book we're just finishing reading, it's the basic Jewish concept of accountability. Moshe accounts for all of the work that was done in the construction of the Mishkan, and for every shekel that was expended in that project. Moshe was troubled that he couldn't initially account for that 1,000 shekels that were apparently missing, and didn't allow him to balance the book fully. Only later, when he was able to recall that that missing silver was used to fashion hooks holding the curtains of the structure, then his account was complete and fully accurate. Accountability. In the last analysis of life, accountability, this is the main challenge and the test that faces all of us. In the book of Kohelet, King Solomon informs us that all of our actions, all of our behaviors will be accounted for in God's system of justice. It's this concept of accountability that allows that basic axiom of Jewish life, reward, punishment, the temporal and eternal, to function. We can't wing it, boys and girls. It's a matter of saying, this is what I stand for. You know, one of the greatest weaknesses of individuals and societies that I've come across is that they somehow feel that they're not accountable for their errors, their sins, their omissions, their failures. You know, we live in a world where everyone gets a pass. In our Torah, the only educational system, the older the student becomes and the higher level and reputation of the institution he or she attends, it seems that the weaker the demands of accountability become. Without a system of testing, with no realistic goals for scholarship, we don't have to amount to anything. Pass, fail, good for trying, Jimmy. In the long run, this is destructive to the individual. In democracies, here in Israel, don't we know about elections? They're held periodically and meant to hold our leaders accountable. In practice, it doesn't always work, but the theory is at least present in our society and political system. In dictatorships, There's never any voluntary day of reckoning. No one likes to be beholden to the judgment of others. We see that in businesses, educational institutions, agencies, religious foundations. There are always mini dictatorships. The prophets of Israel held the leaders and the people of Israel accountable to the moral teachings of the Torah, and indeed to God himself, so to speak. The prophets of Israel served as a necessary break to an otherwise dictatorial, all-powerful monarchy. You know, the rabbis of the Talmud, they were acutely aware that they were accountable for their decisions and behavior. Oftentimes, that sense of accountability focused on the presence of another individual rabbi to whom someone somehow felt accountable. The great Mar Shmuel mourned the death of Rav by saying that the person I feared and was accountable to is no longer with us. The idea of accountability stretches over generations. We're all accountable. In the closing note, Rabbi David of Novardok says, why is it that a person does not have what he wants? It is because he does not want what he has. If he wanted only what he has, he would have all he wants. Shabbat Shalom U'Mivarach.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
Howdy, this is Rita from League City, Texas, now living in Israel. And though my heart may have belonged to Texas, it now belongs to Israel and all the fantastic show hosts at Israel News Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Michael Solomon from Kiryat Arba, Israel. And why do I love listening to Israel News Talk Radio? Because I love listening to the interesting interviews they do and their news reporting that most other media sources don't cover.
Hey, this is Nicoleko from Malmö, Sweden. It gets pretty cold here in Sweden, so I love cuddling up with a warm cup of tea while I listen to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Frank Morris from Tennessee. Me and my dog Buster really love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.